for me, what I go back to is like the purpose of why you do a certain format. When you do like a short form, you have to know why you do it. When you start, you should probably think about building your audience first. A lot of the people that succeed, they actually spend a lot of time in the analytics. They spend a lot of time trying to understand the platform. Your time is the essence of what you do. So it's important to delegate those things that are maybe not related to the core creation. But also because other people can do it better than you.
Hi, Victor.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And
Are you ready for today?
Very ready, yeah. I mean, it's recording on Monday morning, but that's
first thing Monday.
Great. Yeah.
That's actually probably the only time when I'm like super awake and motivated. It is like the first half of a Monday morning. It's just downhill from
actually,
there.
Yeah. Then you get a bit tired during the week, and then
by Friday, it's like, what am I even saying?
Actually, that's a good idea. Do the best things first, and then
Exactly. So I'm so excited to speak with you today. To kick us off, would you mind by giving us a brief description as to who you are and what you do, specifically for someone who they've never come across you before?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Victor. So currently I work for the Soul Publishing. Soul Publishing is a digital media studio. So we produce and distribute videos across social media primarily. So that's the main source. So it's a bit like the media from before, but just we focus on social media as like the main destination. Before that, so I worked there for 5 years. I'm overseeing our relationship with all the YouTube and all the platforms and the team that works with our platform strategy and so on, and do partnerships as well with them and other creators and brands and so on. And before that, so I worked there 5 years, for 5 years now. Before that, I was 2 years at Lego, so the brand.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. I got a lot of Lego sets, but also I was working on the social media content basically there. They were doing a lot of social first content. So we were doing, basically content production for social media, which was really fun. And before that, actually, I spent over 6 years at YouTube. So I was working with content creators like you and brands and so on. I mean, I wasn't working directly with you.
I wasn't even
clarity.
on YouTube then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But with like a lot of content creators from back in the days, basically across gaming, across Europe, and helping them grow on YouTube. So yeah, different kind of experiences. But yeah, it's good to have that view of the industry and what's going on, especially recently, like so many things going on.
Yeah, I always find it so interesting when I speak with people who has been in the creator space for that long, because it's changed so much. I mean, it wasn't even a thing like more than 10, 15 years ago.
Definitely.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen, whether it's the creator economy or social media in general, since your early days at YouTube up until where you are now?
I think, like you say, it's basically a thing. Like, I think back in the days, I mean, some people were just making videos, but they had no idea what this could lead to. And it was actually difficult to make videos at the time. You know, you had to still know about editing. You probably have to buy a camera because your phone was not good enough. And you put it up, but like you didn't know that this would turn into a business. And even in a few years that I was at YouTube, you could see that transformation. When I was there, at some point, I was part of the team that launched new countries for monetization because it wasn't available everywhere before.
Wow.
So we'd go to like Norway, Sweden, Finland, and then like start the partnership program there. And then you could see like how that helps create like people take it more seriously. And then all of a sudden, like the local scene of creators is like growing. And then 2-3 years later, it's kind of the same story you see in the UK, in the US, you know, where this person started on YouTube, now they're on TV, or like now they're actually a big star, and like the mainstream media was starting to realize that. So yeah, I think it just wasn't a thing before, where now I think people, they kind of know what they're getting into a bit, or the potential that it can be, which is a double-edged sword, because, you know, you're going with expectations maybe, but at the same time, you know that there's a future. So it's motivating, and, you know, role models and example of people that made it. So you might be able to replicate that.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, like there's some people who believe that when the industry changed and people realized that you can make a good living from it, it actually ended up resulting to a situation where you have a lot of creators who maybe aren't doing it for the love of creating and are maybe doing it more for a monetization route. I personally don't see anything wrong with that. I'm like, a job is a job.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you've saw any trends or any changes when it came to how creators were approaching content creation when monetization became more of a thing and when the ability to earn money was more present.
Yeah, I think you had maybe more people, like you say, going into it with an entrepreneur type of view. So it's not so much like I'm a creative or artistic person and I just like to make videos and it happened to work. But it's like, okay, what are the things that are working? How I can grow this and monetize it and add value and, you know, build a team. And now we see it a lot. I mean, you're like that as well. Like it's more like an entrepreneur creator, you know, because you start content is the main thing that you do, but then you have so many things around it. So
yeah.
Did you notice anything like, I mean, in the time that you've seen it, like, did you see any change in mindset of people?
Yes, I have. I think Also with creators who were creating before they could make money from it, I also saw a switch in how they approached content creation, because suddenly it became a bit more formulaic. And I didn't think that was a bad thing, but they start to pay a bit more attention to their analytics, and they make some decisions based on their income and earning potential over purely the creativity element. But yeah, some people think that's a good thing, some people don't. I think it's all just part of the industry, and you can do it either way, and that's totally fine. So yeah, I think some people think that's a good thing, some people think it's a bad thing. I think it's all just part of the industry. Before we dive a little bit deeper into that discussion though, I'd love to hear a bit more about what you do in your current role and like a day-to-day basis, and how you currently work with creators.
Yeah, sure. So my team, so I have different teams, but mostly we work with YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media platforms, and others as well. So right now, the Soul Publishing, we distribute across more than 50 platforms, our brands. So we have brands like 5 Minute Craft, Brightside. So they are quite big brands with significant following. And we are in touch with the social media platform, but also other like streaming platforms and TikTok, like short form and so on, to understand the roadmap, to have a relationship, to help them test new features. So like the relationship that you would have with your partner manager, for instance, I'm sure with some of these platforms, it's this as well, but like obviously at the scale of a company. So that, spend a lot of time like talking with people from platforms, understanding what are their priorities, how we can support that, and so on. And then also like part of the job is historically, like we worked a lot on our own brands. We grow them across different social media. We have like combined 2 billion followers, subscribers across all platforms. And it's also now we are seeing how we can use the tools and the processes and have the knowledge that we have to help brands and creators as well, like to benefit from the things that we learn as well. So, there's also that element that we are more and more like building as well, because we see a lot of interest. People are... It's kind of complex. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Like right now, with so many things going on, and we've managed to at least make the complexity a bit less. Yeah. So we try. A lot of people have demand for this kind of help.
Yeah, 100%. And it links into what we were saying before. People are taking their career as a creator seriously because they know they can earn money from it, and part of that is actually dedicating the time to learning the platforms they're on and truly understanding how to leverage them. And as you said, that's really difficult when you're not in the industry. It's so hard. It changes all the time. So given that you are, have quite a close relationship with a lot of different social media platforms, what are some trends or some things that you're noticing from social media platforms that maybe creators should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't, about the shorts. I think it's been a couple of years, but still, I think it's still very prominent. And probably for creators, I think it's very important to not just understand that it's short form, but the way that the audience discover it as well. And that was always been a thing as well, across the different experiences I've had. It's like, you need to understand the context of why the numbers are this way. So like short form, I think it's the way that people discover it is very topical. There's a high potential for being discovered, but then the engagement will be very low. So I think it's important to take into account this. And then I think on the other end of the spectrum, we see like very high interest in like long form, like super long form. I mean, maybe you see it with the podcast as well, like people that watch for a very long time, and specifically TV, I think. So YouTube is the biggest TV platform in the US right now for streaming. So that's, I think not many people realize that. Yeah. And what we see is like we have channels and brands that have most of their watch time is coming from TV audience right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that's, obviously it's almost going to like two extremes.
Yeah.
And you still have your 3, 5, 10 minute video that, is the bread and butter, but it's stretching across many formats, many platforms. And again, that becomes more complex. So I think that's the trend is like, how do you navigate this?
Yeah. Because that's the hard thing, isn't it? I read something recently where they were talking about the fact that most adults consume content from a multitude of formats. So most adults do want the long form, the short form. They want the vertical, they want the landscape, they want the lives, they want like every other feature you can imagine, which begs the question from a creator's perspective, what do you do with that information? Like, how do you figure out what to prioritize, short form or long form, whether you should prioritize either, and how do you balance them? So if someone asks you that question, what would you say to them?
Yeah, so I think like for me, what I go back to is like the purpose of why you do a certain format. So when you do like a short form, you have to know why you do it, or if you do a long form, it's not just because you can do it. It's like, what is it going to bring to you? So give you like very simple example, like short form, typically it's higher reach. So you will get into people's feeds potentially, and they will start to see you, but the engagement will be low. So you might build a subscriber base or follower base, but you cannot expect that they will be like hugely engaged, but the numbers will be good. So actually that's why it's exciting as well as creator. You know? Oh, I got 10,000 views, but it's like, if you compare it to a 1 hour view, it's like different currency almost.
Yes.
You're comparing dollars with some other money, that is like a lot lower. But still, like it's almost like the trailer to something, right? So as a next step, your longer form content, if you do your 5 to 10 minute videos on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, that certain people will discover it and it will be new viewers that find you because it's like a general interest maybe, but the engagement will be a bit higher. And then I think on the end of it, you have the live, or even like if you do like a very personal blog or FAQ, for instance, then like your numbers are going to be smaller, but then the people that watch this and connect with you is going to be very high. So I think it's to think about it like a funnel.
Yes.
So it's good to do your short form, like to get to people to know you. Then you can go to the next step, like work on some other formats that are a bit longer, where it will be less. But don't be depressed because like you get only 1,000 views and the rest you get 100,000. It's kind of normal part of the process. I think and I think they have to understand again what is the purpose of the format and why they do it, and measure it based on the purpose that they allocate to it.
That is such a good point. I could not agree with you more. I have come across so many different creators, especially around the TikTok boom a couple years back, who were so focused on the views and the reach and the top of the funnel stuff. And they saw that as their success metric. And what that ended up, resulting in is the fact that they got to a point where they were like, okay, if I want to release something like a product or service or a subscription, their conversion was incredibly low because you've got a bunch of people who see your content, that's amazing, but hardly any of them are moving down the funnel to the point where they're considering you as a trusted source or any of that, or they feel like they're part of your community because you've stuck to this top of the funnel reach driving stuff and you haven't done any of the other things. So you've not moved them down. I've seen so many people fall victim to that. If someone's listening who has done that, what would you recommend that they do?
I think it's good to keep the consistency between the format, and usually, I mean, if you're a creator, you are the brand, so you can keep that consistency. But in terms of what you talk about, the kind of topic, the niche that you're in, so again, it's like I think we all do as consumer of the short form platform and so on. Like if you see like the same thing, the same creator 5-10 times and they talk about something interesting, actually there's a point where you probably will go and watch the longer video. I think it's especially true on YouTube. I mean, that's what they're trying to build as well, to be that platform for all kind of formats, and have there's this connection between the shorts and the long. They're not one-to-one, so but still, and it's actually quite easy, once you've seen something, and then if they happen to recommend like the longer videos, then you've seen maybe 10 shorts already, and if it's the same topic or even coming from the same video, then I think you are more likely to do it. So I think keep that consistency between your short and your long, so it's not something completely different. The quality or the style that of the video is also the same. I don't know, what would you say, like in general, like you keep that's how you approach it as well?
So I've a similar approach, and I would go back to your previous point about like figuring out what the purpose of what you're doing is. I think because there's creators and there's brands, and sometimes your objective for the next quarter might be awareness, and therefore that's totally fine, that's what you're doing. Just know that you can't jump from that to like conversions without doing some other work as well. So I would suggest something similar. And a great example that I always think about is, do you remember when TikTok sponsored VidCon? Was that last year or the year before? And they had a bunch, it was the first time they did it, and they had a bunch of TikTokers with their stalls, and no one came to their stalls. And I was like, this is just the most perfect example of what happens when you focus too much on the awareness content and you do no community building stuff. Because these are TikTokers who have millions of followers. If you had millions of YouTube subscribers, you would literally be hounded when you walk down the street. Like you would be treated like a celebrity. Like there's no way you could go to VidCon and no one would appear.
Have you been to VidCon?
I've never been.
Oh, really?
No, I've never been. Have you?
I've been a few times, but
What's it like? I've never been.
I think all those kind of events where fans coming to you have to go at least one. I mean, there's a lot of UK, so you've probably been to some other variations. Because just like to see again that connection. And when like even when I see before, like working with like gamers or vloggers, like because people literally spend 2 hours with them every day watching them. So when they can meet them, it's like best friend. But if you're doing interviews in the streets, that connection is a lot less. First of all, you're not kind of the main. You're not the main point of interest in the video. It's more about the guests, right? And the interaction is very short, so it's different.
And it's amongst so much other content as well.
Like
when you are sitting down, spending some time just in an absolute TikTok hole, you can scroll for 30 minutes and see 50 videos that you loved and not remember the name of any of those creators or anything about them. Just know that you loved it, right? Same 30 minutes, however long long I said, if I spend that on YouTube, I've probably watched one, maybe two creators. I know their names. I know where they went on holiday last week. I know their dog's name. And that was just from that time that I just spent watching them.
And you'd probably travel to meet them if you could.
I would recognize them on the street. I'd probably ask for a photo. Like there's just so many different elements that people don't really think about when it comes to, the longer form content.
It's important to make those connections. And we've done it. Like, I mean, there are different ways you can do it. Of course, just doing the right content is already good because that people are going to seek the brand if they see you like somewhere on shorts form, even if it's a different platform, there's a higher chance it will help you. But also like you can do, like there are some features like YouTube is an example because it's still the place where you have the main long content, let's be honest. Like TikTok is pushing a little bit the long form, but still like people don't go to TikTok to watch 10-minute videos. Like I don't know, at least I don't know anyone and I don't think it's like a behavior. So like we've done things, for instance, when we had a videos which was about I think it was like a casting video. So like you do things with waxes like in the shape of your hand or something like this. And the short was really good, and shows you like a kind of short way of doing the process. But then you could go like, there's a way to link directly to the longer videos, which was like a 10-15 minutes and like take you through the process. And the short went quite well. I think it did 60 or 70 million views or something like this. And again, like I think we checked the conversion was like 1 to 2%, but still like, from 60 million, it's like, bring you like a good close to million views, even more actually. So yeah, again, it drives some of the audience. We didn't expect everyone first to watch the whole video and then to go to the long one, but you create these bridges, and then you build a long form audience as well on your long form. And so I think it's good to think about these things. Like you say.
So you just mentioned TikTok, and I do want to talk to you about TikTok because lots is happening at the moment. You mentioned them leaning into longer content. They went through that phase where they were testing the 30 minutes. I'm not even sure if they're still doing that, the 30-minute landscape videos and stuff. What are your thoughts? You had to turn your phone. What are your thoughts on that direction? Do you think there is something there? Because they're also, bribing creators to do longer form because they're like, you're going to make more money. Do you think there's a future for TikTok in the longer form space?
I think so the way I see it is it's hard to know exactly how behavior will change. I mean, I think people are starting to watch longer content, and if you start to watch video and it's a bit longer, like people will gravitate towards it. I don't know if it's going to be 10 minutes or 30 minutes yet. Even people watch now movies on TikTok, but it's still they watch 1 minute by 1 minute videos.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, going to the next one. But I think like this maybe is the point. Like and they were pushing for monetization of videos over 1 minute. So we for instance we started to like upload more videos over 1 minute, but we didn't just like switch everything to that, right? I think you have to have some balance. I think it speaks to the point of like you as creator, like you have your main platform for distributions. I think it's important first of all to be present on several of them, and maybe we'll talk about it more later, but also to understand like what is their roadmap, what is their vision. I mean, sometimes it can be difficult, but there's so many resources and they're sharing blogs. I think YouTube is very good at that, but TikTok also to some extent have contacts and events and other creators, again, to understand what they're trying to build and embrace it, like give them a chance. So like with the TikTok longer videos, I think it's good to test those kind of things. First, because, what if it works? Then you're ahead. And second, also it's sometimes opportunities to get visibilities, for instance, because when TikTok is pushing something, they can push something, frankly, if they want to push more 1 minute videos, they will incentivize with money. They might, make sure that watch time is more important than maybe the views or anything else.
Yeah.
So it's very important what we, like, for instance, when in 2020, so we saw like we were on TikTok in 2019, which I guess was a little bit before the big hype, which was like pandemic and stuff. But YouTube launched Shorts in 2020 in India first, I think partially to test it and partially because TikTok was banned in India. And we have channels in different languages, so 22 languages. So
amazing.
We have like a Hindi, we have a bunch of Hindi channels. So we actually started to test it there like straight away, like because we know if YouTube is like testing a feature, then you want to be. And so we were like kind of ahead of understanding the feature, like what works. And then they rolled it out to the US and to the rest of the world. And we were already like straight away there as well. And at the end of the day, I think it was really good to be on Shorts. Like today we have billions of views on it, but like many creators are, it has worked. So of course, sometimes it's not always like that. They launch something and it doesn't work as expected. But I think it's important.
It's worth the effort just to give it a go and trial it 100%.
Exactly.
So you've been creating short form content since before that was a thing to do. I'm curious to know whether you've seen a change in performance, especially, I mean, I know on Instagram, they had their Reels blow up, which was that like 2020? God, all of those years around the pandemic are just one to me. But there was it was around that time where they first launched Reels, and there was about 12 to 18 months where it was like, if you post a Reel, you will go viral. Doesn't matter if it's not good. Like, you're going to get a lot of views from it. And obviously that is significantly different now. So I'm curious, have you seen a similar pattern on TikTok and YouTube? And if so, how have you gone about that?
I think it's more of a mature phase, I guess. Like, so like something like, Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels as well. Because there's still a lot of people also watch on Facebook. I think it's an important platform for creators, you know, it's certain categories.
We should talk about that in a minute, actually.
Exactly, yeah. So like there's a phase where, it's growth, and they probably like, you know, they want to make sure the format is being used, viewed by viewers, they get feedback. And after there's maturity, I think there's many factors that means that maybe your views are lower. First, competition. I mean, it's in the early phase, again, not everyone is jumping into it. So like the people that do, there might be some opportunities in terms of certain content that you will be pushed. So I think that's obviously a main factor there. So it's important to have that, to be part of that supply, I think, first of all, because they push for it. But then I think it's going more into different niches. So it becomes a bit maybe harder to optimize. There's more crowded competition. I think also we can remember that now it's become easier and easier to create content across different genre. I mean, we take it for granted that with your phone you can make something, but there's more and more tools to add green screen, to add special effects and everything. So the quality of the content also increased. So I think then the way to get discovered can be different. I think right now I would say that niche content is still very good, like, because that's the premise of social media as well. You have a passion, you think it's like very small. Even like we have a lot of big crafting brands. Crafting is, okay, it's a big hobby, but like if you take it at scale of a local scale, it's maybe not that big, but we have millions of subscribers because it's a global brand and people watch across borders. So I think whatever you niche, all those platforms, they are global, they gather people around specific interests. So I think that's something that is going to continue, right? So like, I think the more niche and don't try to be too broad, the more niche you are and focused on like specific category, even if it's accounting. I mean, I think you had someone actually accounting in the UK. Like, I mean, it's not a huge topic. On social media, but like still you can build hundreds of thousands of followers around that because you know there's people interested all over the world. Yeah,
that is the beautiful thing about social media, is it doesn't really matter how unique you think that interest is. There are other people who have the same interest and they will be on social media. You just have to find them. I want to talk about Facebook because when I was at a conference this year, and I think last year, all I heard about was last year all I heard about was Facebook. This year was obviously AI, but then also LinkedIn. But I remember, LinkedIn was like the thing. It's social media channel.
It's a thing, I guess.
It's such a thing. But I want to know about Facebook. You said you think it's an important channel for content creators. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think one thing that we see is it's maybe also due to that it's kind of different generation, but still like Facebook is massive. Like they have 2 billion users. 50% of the video of the traffic on Facebook is actually video content. So it's slightly older audience. But what we see is like even some of the creators that we work with, like we can see that they like find the audience there, and there is also monetization. So it's actually not well known. So many people even that in the industry like, oh, like Facebook monetize, like they didn't know about it. And it can be decent, like quite good earnings. We know people that make more on Facebook than YouTube, for instance. Like so I think it's specific categories of content. It's usually a bit maybe older audience. Let's be honest. I don't know many young people on Facebook. So like it has to appeal to that. I would say slightly more maybe content for a woman audience. And I think there is something specific. So it's not going to work for everyone, but like again, it's worth, if you see that there's a fit with your audience, it's worth like trying and distributing there. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. I think it's something in general I also want people to understand, like it's not that you need to like make a video for YouTube, make a video for Facebook, make a video for TikTok. Like you should think of how you can save time and use your time wisely, like and the effort that you put in to see if it works for you.
I agree. So, and I know one way that you could do that from Instagram and Facebook is you can literally just post your reel across both platforms. So is that something you recommend people doing?
Yeah, I mean, if it works, then you can do more about it. But if it doesn't, then
you've given it a go.
Spend,
I do not use Facebook. No, I don't use Facebook or LinkedIn, and I know I should be using both, but I'm at my capacity of social media channels. So I feel like sometimes you've got to balance the two. I reckon second half of the year, I'll have space for one more. I don't know whether it will be Facebook or LinkedIn, probably LinkedIn. But at the minute, I'm like, I can't do another one well. So I'm going to wait, but
Okay.
soon.
Yeah, I guess for you also, you are at a phase where you already have something to maintain. So you have your core platforms, and it takes time, and you cannot just let it like.
No, I can't let them fizzle out. And then I obviously had to go and create a whole nother one for this. So it's just like several. So there's a lot.
Podcast,
there's a lot. It's just me and Hayley running it. Soon though, I do want to try at least LinkedIn, maybe Facebook.
I guess for business it will be really good.
Yeah. I was going to say, what are your thoughts on LinkedIn from a creator's perspective as well? Because I think it's a bit of an interesting one. Genuinely for creators. I know my niche is quite specific and it works there, but a lot of creators have come to me and said, people keep on telling me to go on LinkedIn, but their niche is like fashion or travel and stuff, and they're like, I don't get how that works in your strategy. And I think it's a really good question, because I don't really see that either.
I think I would say LinkedIn, it would have to be very specific, like you have to know that it's going to be the right platform for you, because you're at a certain phase, because it's very business to business in some ways. Like you're not going to have like a very super wide amount of consumers. I mean, you have the occasional viral videos there, but like I don't think it's really intended that way. But I think if you are a starting creator, it's important first not to put everything into one platform. I'm sure you recommend this as well to people, but also like try. I mean, there's probably could be like 4 or 5 main platforms depending on what you do that you could think about when you start. And doesn't have to be super complicated. You could use some of the features. You could make some small modifications. I mean, when we work with our brands, we try to adapt, like change the format. We have tools to do that. But if you don't have the energy in the beginning and you're just yourself, then I think it's completely fine to just post the same thing. And you even have tools like with different AI tools, or not even AI, that are helping you distribute, because you can maximize your chances, and you can learn what's working or not. Like even things like Pinterest, TikTok, Snapchat. So I think it's, especially when you start, it's important to see what can be working, because in a way, if you have a creator and you want it to be your business, you don't want to have like one main supplier in a way. Like in any business, you don't want to depend just on one thing, because if it changes, then it can be distressful. So I think it's important to use the fact that there are different platforms, they're competing for creators, because without them, like they're not going to do like a lot. They need them, so you need to work that at your advantage in some ways.
Is there a channel that you see more valuable than others, or are there a few?
For us, I mean, we like platforms that share, also like have programs. So because there's a way where you can see the progress in some ways. I mean, business, if your business model as well is to generate revenue from advertising, then that's like one of the main sources of how people make money on online with video content. So like, YouTube, Facebook, Snap, like those platforms that are leaning towards sharing monetization. The other ones, we obviously working on them as well and building them. But we just we use them for slightly different purposes, more brand deals, brand recognition, experimenting, and so on. So I think that's like the focus usually. It's this platform where we can build some scale, and like we have some level of monetization that we can get.
So what would you say to a creator who is kind of like, okay, there's a few, they're just starting out and they think they know what platform they want to be on. They're considering everything we've already discussed, but there's also the discussion of monetization. How does that fit into their overall strategy? And should they use their ability to earn money to determine which platform they should be on?
I would say like when you start, you should probably think about building your audience first. I mean, I'd rather take a stance here. I think, it can be part of your business plan that at some point there's going to be like some venue that you want to go to and generate revenue. And there are a lot of ways to do that. But there needs to be like, if the core of your business is that you need to build an audience for something, then probably you should focus on that first. In a way, it can be the hardest thing.
I agree. I think it is the hardest thing.
Exactly. Once you have an audience, to monetize it, there are a lot of ways you can go about it. But if you have zero audience and you need to build one, it's actually like, difficult, and it's not guaranteed as well. So I think that's probably the way I would do it. Like, like first build significant scale in terms of what you can do. And it doesn't have to be big. I think now we know that like most marketers like plans or anything, like they have creators at heart of the plans. They, it's not like a few years ago where you have to, I'm doing social media, like what? Oh no, we don't have like, I think now it's part of any strategy, any marketing strategy. So you will find opportunities, whether it's brand deals, which is number one source basically for creators, whether it's monetization from the platform directly. And there's even some sources of monetization now that didn't exist a few years ago. So now a lot of people are making money from affiliate. So like TikTok shop, but also like a YouTube shop actually. And this, like a few years ago, this wasn't on the chart of how people make money with video content. And this literally like for the last year or two. So maybe in 2-3 years, there'll be like new ways to make money we don't even know about.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point. I've never considered that before, but you're so right. There probably will be. Yeah, I completely agree with what you've just said, especially your point around growing your audience first, because a lot of the time your audience will tell you what they want you to create and therefore sell or release, especially if you're going to go down like a product or service point. And that means that you have a built-in audience there already. You have proof of concept, people already asking for things, you know what their pain points are. And if you haven't built an audience yet, you might not even realize that your audience is going to end up changing. Like my first few videos were about e-commerce, and I don't run any e-commerce stores anymore. I did then, but I don't anymore.
What were you selling?
I had 2 boutiques. I had a bag boutique and a swimwear boutique.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It was cool.
You've done many things.
But yeah, no, I know. Yeah. But the swimwear boutique I literally created like 2 months before the pandemic. And then obviously we live in England. Yeah. It's cold and no one could travel for years.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Sometimes you get good timing with pandemic, sometimes
and sometimes you don't. Yeah, that definitely wasn't a good timing one. But like I don't run those anymore. And I would have thought back then that is specifically the audience I would have spoken to. So imagine if I created all these products and services to serve that audience and then started trying to build the audience and realized that that's not actually the audience I want to speak to. So I completely agree with all those points.
Someone in your podcast that I don't remember the guest name, but like they were talking about the fact that it's good to make sure that there is some problem that you try to solve. So I think it's the same, like make sure there is like an audience and not just assume that, oh, this is cool, I want to do that. But then like you don't have any feedback mechanism. And that's the beauty of social media, that again, we take it for granted, but you get that instant feedback. I think whether it's on the content itself, like you put it out, you get data and you can see how many who watch and when did they drop off. Like it's crazy. Like 10 years ago, you make a show for TV or something, you film for 1 year, you have 2 years, like 2 seasons. You put the first one, everyone hates it. Well,
you just lost 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now you can iterate, and I think it's the same thing for product, for asking people for feedback. Like the development cycle of a product, if that's your goal, you can do it like live, and it's like you need to use that basically.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember working at Brandside like a few years ago, really, really big British brand. And when we did like a TV campaign, you would literally be in the ideation phase and be like, cool, we're going to find out if this worked in about 18 months. Like you're not going to know for a really long time because it needs to air for at least 6 months. And then the way of reporting, it was a way... economical reporting. It was this way of reporting where you're looking at your overall sales and then subtracting all these different like factors from it based on the time of year, if there was like an Olympics on, if you ran any other ads to try and identify what that TV ad actually contributed to your sales. It was ridiculous. And you had random, basically. It was like it was just so complicated. You had to hire another agency to do it. It was so expensive. Just such a different world.
Yeah, and 18 months later, like nowadays you can't plan something for 18 months. Like
I couldn't imagine being like, I'm going to create something and see if it works in 18 months.
For 1 month, in 1 month.
I just couldn't imagine it. So we're so spoiled now. And I think a lot of the time it's easy to forget that, / if you're new to the industry, that's all you know. And it is a great place for us to be in. So we are very, very fortunate.
So people need to make sure they
embrace it. Use it. Use it. And some platforms make it easier to do that than others. Like that's part of the reason why I love YouTube so much. Their analytics are so robust.
It's like actually insane the level of it is. And it's been like that for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, other platforms have the basics, but like, YouTube is like a league on its own.
It's insane. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, did you mean to share this data with me? I feel like it's like private data.
It's too much. Like.
I can barely get to the bottom of all the data. It's a lot, but it's when you know how to use it, it's incredibly valuable.
And I think that's another like very important point. Like a lot of the people that succeed, they actually spend a lot of time in the analytics. They spend a lot of time trying to understand the platform. Because again, if you rely on TikTok for distribution or for sale of your product, then you better spend a good amount of time understanding the platform and how it works and what they're planning to be and so on. So I think it's super important to be deep into the numbers, but also like how it works in general. And you see like the Mr. Beast and so on, like they could probably do like a 10-hour podcast talking about thumbnails, and I think maybe they've done it.
Probably. Very true. Okay, well, this has been an incredible conversation. I'd like to finish it off with you just maybe sharing 1 to 2 pieces of advice for any creators listening who are trying to really supercharge their career this year.
There's I think one thing we didn't touch on too much, and I think it's super important for creators to think about when they grow, especially. It's like delegation. I think it's like the main thing. Yeah, so I'm sure you know.
Yes, I've learned the hard way.
Yeah, we all do. But like, I think of course, when you start, like you have to do everything, right? Like your accounting and so on. But as you grow, like first, like your time is the essence of what you do. So it's important to delegate those things that are maybe not related to the core creation on, you know, not where you are good at, but also because other people can do it better than you. I think that's the second thing. Like they actually probably will do a better job. You might not think that at first because you're so attached to it.
Yeah, it will be better and quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there's always a phase in the beginning where it's a bit slower because you have to explain to them. When you grow a brand, you feel very attached to it. So it will be hard to let go of parts of it to other people. But I think it's super important to learn the skill of delegation because also things happen really quick. Like when I was at YouTube, there's people we talked to that 10,000 subscribers. And then like a year later, they have 1.5 million or 2 million. They get sponsorship by Nike, Adidas, when you deal with the scale of millions and so on, if there's some small changes, something happening, and if you're a bit by yourself, it can be very distressful and very difficult. But if you have a team and you've learned the skill of delegation early on, then actually it's easier to manage because you can rely on other people. Yeah. So I think it's when you start, of course, you do a lot, but then you can still delegate to third-party tools, you know, that help you with your workflows or, you know, companies. Then as you go, you can even hire other people. You know, we work with people like on the entire distribution of things. So you can work with different companies as well to help you with certain things. But yeah, I think like thinking about it this way. So of course you're a creator at heart, but you kind of become more of entrepreneur in a way. I mean, that's where you are in the end of the day. I think. So yeah. And delegation is key to that. So I would say that's kind of key to think about. You know, when you start, you have limited resources, but as you grow, like how you can make room for
reinvest. I think a lot of people don't do that. And again, it's exactly what you just said. You are a creator, but you also are an entrepreneur. And I think when you make that mindset shift and you realize like, okay, I'm starting to earn money from creating content, that's amazing, but let's invest this so that I can create more content or better quality content and really invest in your future. I think a lot of creators don't do that. And hopefully after listening to this, they might consider it.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was such a great conversation.
It was amazing. Yeah, great to be here. Yeah,
I had a great time. Amazing Monday morning. We could just rest for the rest of the week. We're just done.
Take the day off.
I will put links to the Soul Publishing and where they can find you guys in the description. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot.